네. microphone. We're coming in loud and clear. It's good to be here. Today is February 17th. Gather round, gather near. It's Brody. I got my full Brody gear on today. There's no doubt, there's no way I can't not play. Who we got in the chat this morning? Thank goodness for you. You showed up. Brody's got a little bit of tea in his cup here this morning. I'm telling you, folks, do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or is there too much information? Let me do it for you. I'm the bro. I'm here every day, Monday through Friday. Time for a little bit of morning Magic Stocks and Magic Talks. I'm talking to you. Zombie, thanks for tuning in. The amazing fans of Magic the Gathering who love the game as much as we do. Smash Jackson, Garen Jotter, Dusty, Cully, Murray, Cooper, Coin, Pomeroy, Tyler Friesen, Tyler Harrison, Kyle Mears, the MTG Box Man, the Earl of Drummer, Prime 406 Games, Mr. DJ Longhair, Dual Brain, and all of those of you watching in Het Nederlands, Savannah Lions, Goeiemorgen Nederlands. I'm so super stoked to bring you folks this show. It's the best show we're going to do. We've been sitting here camped out in this spot for what feels like a decade. I promise you folks. Hasbro fourth quarter earnings have been peeled in yesterday. I don't want to talk about anything other than Peppa Pig. Do you know Peppa Pig? Leave me a comment in the comment section below. What's going on, Zombie? First to the show this morning. Happy to have you with us. Let's go. We're going to talk about Hasbro's fourth quarter earnings of last year that came in at $101.31 per share, beating the consensus estimate of $1.30. That's why we saw the price tick up over $60 with a little bit of announcement with Friendly Publishing. Now, let's wrap this all together. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Do you want to get the fun into your collection? Do you know what's fun? What's fun is when the price of a Magic card goes up and it's already in your collection and you just start playing it. What's not fun is when you buy something and then it becomes worthless. You work hard, you put your money in, and then all of a sudden it's not fun because it goes to zero. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the corporation that owns the game. Let's tie it all together. Let's look at some charts. We'll try and have a little fun, and if I've done my job, you might get a little chuckle out of today. So we're going to do a few things here this morning. It's Brody. I'm happy to be here. We're ready to do the show. We've got you with us. What do you call a musician flipping someone off? A songbird. Okay. What's the most detail-oriented ocean? That's the Pacific. And when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. All right, let's do this. We've got to wrap it all together here for you folks because, like, yesterday there was a Rudy video. Oh, my little brother here, right? We got some chop here this morning. Everybody okay with that? Little chop on the stream. So my little brother made a video yesterday that was kind of interesting. But there's one thing that leads me to believe, and that's why I leave the question in the comment section here for you folks. Who is Peppa Pig? Who is Peppa Pig? Insert sound effect here, editor. Editing crew. Who is Peppa Pig and why does this matter? Because Peppa Pig was brought up in the conference call with the shareholders meeting with Hasbro. And so many times I can't even begin to bring it up. And if you've never heard of Peppa Pig, you might be surprised to know that the folks running the helm over there speak about Peppa Pig quite regularly. In fact, all that attention you think might go to Magic the Gathering is probably spent on Peppa Pig, Power Rangers, and princesses, as it appears. So that's something that was not really touched on yet. So we're gonna wrap it all together, and then I'm gonna touch on what is the most interesting component of, to me, my own personal opinion. I'm gonna touch on a couple of things here this morning. We're gonna do a little review of the earnings report from yesterday. Gonna leave a link in the description below for Mr. DJ Longhair's channel, MTG Gaming Bob, myself, Prime 406, and like I say, Mr. DJ Longhair himself. We did a little bit of a pre-roundtable round yesterday. It was such an honor and a privilege to be invited over there to discuss. If you want to hear some good chew on the black and white version of the earnings report, Gaming Bob does that, and the color commentary provided by yours truly, Mr. DJ. It's a kids program, right? So we've heard of Peppa Pig, right? So like, I'm so glad you folks joined us. Do we want to jump right into this here this morning? We can. Well, maybe we should warm up just a touch. Let's warm up how we do here in the stock desk this morning. I want to take a look at a couple of AI generated magic cards for you folks this morning. We're going to read a couple of articles. Let's get some folks in here, and then we're going to bring you folks the near and the dear part of the show. Are you ready to go? Let's do it. I know your time is valuable, and there's no viewer like you, viewer, who's tuning in right now. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing life with me. All are welcome here on the channel. I want to let you know how this goes. Let's warm up this morning. Let's try and have a little fun. We're going to look at some AI generated magic cards. Sales tip of the week. If you're in sales, just add AI generated to anything. You can bump up the price 120 to 160%. This is an AI generated cup of coffee, of course. While the coffee is brewing, the AI is working silently in the background, so silent that you may not even know it's working, and that's how you know it's working. Just like the folks at Wizards who take care of our near and dear game. Let's check this out. If so, this is how it works. I know your time is valuable. Did we lose the camera? I think Brody lost the camera. Man, this is how it works. I know your time is valuable, so let's not waste it. Let's get right into this. If there's any gibberish on the card whatsoever, we fail it. We get it out of here. We don't entertain this gibberish. We got no time. We're training the AI, right? As so as it would seem, anybody using it would be doing so. But let's take a look at some of these AI generated magic cards. If it makes sense, we'll give it a pass. If there's any gibberish on the card, we fail it. We move on. But let's take a look at the Sanctum of Ritual warm up this morning. I'm gonna have a little sip of coffee, thanks, and just arrive on the show with you two folks tuning in. For who else we got? Mr. DJ Long, the Zombie Master. Sanctum of Ritual. We got an instant card. It's 1 blue and 1. It's got some interesting art on it. Looks like a church. OMG. Are you serious? This again? All right. Exile target white permanent in a brack. Do no thwip owner's next upkeep. So I don't know what you see here in the art, but let's get it out of here. We're gonna have to give it a fail, that's right. Insta fail, right? Get it out of here. I meant to get the video up before you so you can use it as a reference, but won't be up to 5:30 for Hasbro fourth quarter 2020 earnings conference call. No commentary, no frills. Yeah. Insta frill on this. Okay, so let's check it out. We got Fail the Sanctum of Ritual. It's no good, but that brings us to this card on here. Let's go the Harbinger of the Great Lands. Shoid? Is that like a something-oid? Harbinger of the Great Landshoid. Can you see that with me here? This human wizard. Human time, wizard time. Seems fine, except for the fact that it costs a boatload of mana. Like, how much is this? One, two, three red and three? This thing's expensive. I don't know. All right, already I'm getting suspicious that it's a little bit overcosted, but nevertheless, maybe we should give it a chance. All right. Instant fail on this baby. The 4/6 human wizard. Whenever Harbinger of the Great Landshoid dies, create a blue 1/1 blue fairy creature token. Okay, red creature dies, you get blue stuff. And then for 2 red and 6 monstrosity 2015. Until end of turn, each opponent may pay only if you have at least 7 life. Can't can't go with it. It's got to go. Who the heck is Peppa Pig anyway, Brody? If you're just joining us, we're just going to warm up this morning before we get into the goods. Here this morning, we're going to do a full review of the Hasbro earnings report here and all the accoutrements. Oh, this is all right. Mania is a replica, a 4/1 spirit soldier. What can we get with this sucker? For 2 white and 3, trample. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield with a number of mana abilities. Interesting. Hmm. I don't know. I think we got to fail this one. Let's get it out of here. This one don't make any sense. I guess we're moving on to this card, which was we saw this one here. This is sort of where we left off yesterday, which is a good spot. Zentic Charm. Charming. How charming. Land. This one I like it. It's a land. It taps for a colorless 2 mana. Tap it. Target creature becomes the color or colors of your choice until end of turn. Could you imagine running this with Mother of Ruins? It seems like an all right card. Time capsule. Good morning. Morning, Time Capsule. Thanks for joining us here on the show. Happy that you are here to join us for a little review, little stocks and talks, a couple of AI generated magic cards this morning. We're going to take a look at some of the news in Hasbro. Read a couple articles. I got one from the Market Insider. Looks like a good one. I can share with you folks. We're going to look at the actual earnings report itself in 2 different versions. We got the color version, and then we've also got the cartoony version for you folks. So that's pretty interesting. Um, oh, cool. So let's check it out. Here we go. The Q4 earnings report. So this is the childlike version. So before we get into this, I want to take a look and look at the optics of what we're seeing here. So we got a couple of documents that are released. Of course, like standard earnings report is going to be don't let Peppa invade your headspace, right? So there's Peppa. If you don't know Peppa Pig, this is Peppa Pig right here on the front. This is Peppa. Okay, so just take a look at the eyes on all these characters. They're not looking, they're sort of looking off to the side. There's worry free, except Jace doesn't really have any pupils. They're sort of a worry free looking type of individual, almost like this is almost like a little piece of entertainment, isn't it? So the part I find interesting about this, let's just go through a couple of slides here for you folks. Full year earnings report. This is the black and white. So the black and white version reads just like an uninteresting company year end. How what we got here is we got a couple of little. Let's get to the sort of the nuggets here. So we got the way they've done it here. They've got Q4 2022 and then Q4 2021. So we got a direct comparison against these two quarters right in the year end report. Okay, so like anybody who's done some analysis or done a video on this would have probably looked at this. I hope you look at both, and I've already left a link in the comment section if you're interested. Gaming Bob did a really good analysis over this, and when it comes down to reading these figures, there's a couple of things that really stand out. One is they borrowed a lot of money. Okay, they borrowed lots of money, and their cash on hand, because they give you the comparison from 1 year over year, which is kind of handy if you're actually you want some figures. But it's some of these figures aren't exactly shown in the cartoony version as such, right? Like over here, this is a much more palatable version for anybody who doesn't have the attention span for the black and white version. Now, there's also a good 1 hour audio. Now, if you don't want to, if this looks too boring and it's a lot of black and white paper, it's 13 pages long, and we can go through some of it. If it looks boring, it's because it is somewhat boring, but all the information is here, and you have to kind of understand how to read one of these. So, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a financial expert, but with some of this data that we're looking at, the long story short is less cash on hand at the end of the year, about half or less than, as well as borrowing a lot of cash. Inventory is also up, so reporting more inventory than the previous year. So let's just take a look here. Net earnings and what we do here on these year ends is you don't have to declare a profit every year, so they put it as a loss. So anything in a bracket means it's a negative, like it's a loss. So if you don't know what that means, if you want to read one of these things, like what the unfortunate thing is, if you're somebody who's a Timmy, like you're Timmy, right? Let's just talk to Timmy. So Timmy, I know you're I so Timmy, I know you are a Magic player, and like Magic is for the age of 13 years and up. But you're going to go through school and you're going to play Magic with your friends and you're going to get, hopefully graduate and get an education, but when you come out of there, like are you sure you're going to be able to read one of these earnings reports? Are you going to be able to drive a car, get a driver's license, open a bank account, get insurance? What is all this black and white printing? Or are we going to march you straight into Magic cards? So what they mean when they put something like this in brackets is that it's a negative. Okay, so all the numbers in brackets mean that there's a loss. Okay, but I can see. So adjusted earnings, and then so if you come down, basically all you got to do to understand this to some degree, and the rest is all terminology, is Q4 of 2021 is everything in this column, and then Q4 of 2022 is over in this column, and you just want to compare the numbers from 1 year over to the other year to see if they went up or down. Now, this is where the rubber hits the road. And when people are asking questions at the end of the conference call, this is going to be the data that they're looking at and when I say asking questions, who's asking questions, right? So if anybody's, who's this prepared for? This is prepared for shareholders, right? Like you and me. No. What do you mean, Brody? Not. What do you mean? Not for you and me. We're not buying shares. You're not gonna. You don't get up in the morning and decide to buy Hasbro stock. No, I want to buy Magic cards. That's why we do this Magic show about Magic cards, right? This is prepared for investors, people who buy shares in the company and like, oh, net revenue. So here it is, millions. Here's like the Magic the Gathering net revenues Q4, and this is all in millions of dollars. So if you see that it's 263, that's 263 million. So when you get to be Rudy, like you get to be like when you get to be like significantly large, you just talk in millions, right? It's not like, yeah, I got a couple of, you have some spare change. That would be like this part, and that's $200,000. So this is the scale of the amount of money that we're dealing with. So I want you guys kind of understand the magnitude of how much money that is. It's a lot of money, right? How much money is that? How much money is moving around, and where does it come from? Well, it comes from you folks, the player base. When you get out the wallet and you buy the new Magic the Gathering products. We like going to local game stores because at least like the local economy can thrive, but this is how much money is sloshing around in the industry. It's in the millions, hundreds of millions, and year after year we got to come out and give everybody a report on it. So the highlights from the black and white part, and it is the boring part, but when you go through it and you look at it line by line, it does, so you just sort of got to compare one line to the next, and if you don't understand what that is, like gap versus non-gap, what is that? So there's general accounting practices, generally accepted accounting principles. So there's acronyms in there, and you can just like easily look up is what it is they're talking about, and then sometimes that helps. Bob brought up a pretty good point about goodwill and what is goodwill and how that's reported on the bottom line and how that affects. So if you take a look like this annual report, this sort of reads like something that this looks like something you'd find in the cereal aisle, honestly, at the grocery store. Uh Safe Harbor, there's a lot of talk about other brands. So to just at the end of the year, $513 million of cash on hand is what they sort of declared as a success, but it's like half the cash on hand as what they had last year. So, um, and increased profit margins with their Nerf Junior, Peppa Pig, Play-Doh, and the D&D Lord of the Rings, D&D and the Lord of the Rings and D&D movie, and the Battle for Baldur's Gate game. So we're talking about Magic as just like a small component of this entire company that appears to be more a branding company. Because if we look here, like Magic is 1/6 of what's on the front here. So we care 1/6 about Magic. We have all these other brands, and you have to look at the company when you're speaking to who they're speaking to about this. That's other companies who would be, or other investors, right? They're using terms that describe the grand successes with certain brands. And there is some attention to JC Boy here, just right behind me. In fact, Jace, you can't even see him because Brody's cut him off. There he is. Hey, Jace. High five. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. I'm glad you could be here, buddy. So they've got a new sci-fi IP that's going to be the biggest in 20 years. This is another nugget that comes out of the conversation, and I'll put the link in the description below. It's an hour long, so if you don't want, like, Brody doesn't read very well, I'll tell you, it takes a lot for me to read through something. When you have What was, hey, look, a monkey. Hey, look, a squirrel. When you have the attention span of a Brody, it makes it very hard to get through an 11-page document, let alone a 40-page document. So, like, something like this, that's a watered down version with cartoon characters on it, might just give you it might give you the warm and fuzzy impression that you know what's going on. But this, there's two sort of sets of people looking at this, I would say. They will keep funding the dividends, so that was another interesting part of the discussion. And if you look at the stock chart, like the one that we look at every morning, you can see that Hasbro stock actually took a bump up in price to $60. Okay. Oh, I did right after the earnings were released yesterday. So they're going to keep the dividend. They're going to keep innovation, digital, direct, and insight. And when they're having this meeting, the Debbie from accounting, Debbie Downer from accounting, sound like they were reading off of a script. So a lot of attention. These folks that are running the show and have custody of the Magic brand have lumped it in with one of their other brands, and it's like when you open a carton of eggs, it's like, look at our amazing brands, right? And each one of those brands holds access to a customer base, a consumer base. And what we'll see is this. Let me bring up this picture for you here, because this part is the most interesting. So here we have uh here we have some more cartoon characters, and of course what we want to be drawing attention on is where this guy is looking, because he's looking up. He's not worried about what's going on over here, except the Peppa Pig's all happy, Domry's chilling out, but like uh it says down 9%, 6% absent. So net revenues 5.86 billion, down 9%. Like, so, but not to worry, not to worry. This folk, these folks here are even, they're not even sweating it. They're not sweating it. They're not worried, and neither should you be. Everything is fine. It's all going according to plan, according to investors, right? According to the people pitching this stuff at the meeting. So where's let me get a good one here, if you know what I'm talking about. So everything in this basket of brands that is now the custodial of Magic is like, they've got this, the consumer. You know who this is? Who is right at the heart of everything right here. The consumer. This is you, and this is how their brands are surrounding you and the consumer. So they would like to surround you in this blueprint 2.0. This is another buzzword. So it's another word that, if you didn't follow along very closely to what it is that they're talking about in their long-term growth plan, well, everybody who's a player is immediately focused on making YouTube content, opening packs, playing and emptying their wallets, driving to events, cosplaying and having a good time. It's all part of the plan of Blueprint 2.0. So we have that here. And if you want to know what that is, people say, some of the folks running around playing tournaments right now have probably never heard of Blueprint 2.0 or Peppa Pig for that matter. But, and that's the way they want it. They want people to not be awakening to this, this plan to surround the consumer with all these amazing products, and realize that they're just part of it, and they're playing a part unbeknownst to themselves. But this Blueprint 2.0 is happening, right? So they've got these special brands that we want to surround their folks with, and no matter where you look, you're going to see them, and Magic is part of one of those brands. So that's an interesting component about this entire chat. Morning, Tom Mitchell's in the house. Tom, we're going over the earnings report for yesterday from Hasbro. We're taking a look. It is sort of boring, right? It is sort of boring, but like, this is a show when we bring it all together. Okay, so let's put it all together in a way that's sort of meaningful, and let's take the target off of your back, because that's the way this is written. And let's make a little bit more sense of this, and let's bring it into like a more, a better sense of truth and reality as to the way we choose to interact with the game that these folks have custody over. So, as it stands, the licensing is going to be continued. They talked about higher so the common data core. So there's a few more graphs here. So the higher than expected fourth quarter, or they had lower than expected fourth quarter sales. And there was some discussion. Now, this is something that I had never heard about. It was called impairment charges. It's something that come up, and I have to look it up. It's and apparently to do with some brand licensing. There's something called impairment charges, so I'll have to look that up. But apparently, companies can rack up impairment charges when something is costing them money year over year, and it's impairing their abilities to uh, do anything with it. Like if something's costing them more in licensing than their printing of a toy, for example, just to hold on to it. We've all heard of Kenner toys, haven't we? Innovation in the digital site will seem like the really big focus, and a product cost and an inventory product cost. These folks are they've lowered the bonus. The other thing too, they've lowered their bonus. So an interesting thing. So all footnotes from the 1 hour. Oh, we got some more graphs. We got some really good ones. All footnotes from the 1 hour audio discussion, and I'll leave a link in the description for you folks. The 1 hour audible fourth quarter conference call. Let me put it. Let me put a link in the comments there as well for you folks. Listen to the webcast.
Level, but this is now most likely 2025 and beyond. We have sufficient cash to operate our business, meet our CapEx needs, including investing for growth, and funding our dividends. We
So they're going to keep
continue
the
to target
dividend.
debt to EBITDA of 2 to 2.5 times. For 2023, we expect to make progress against this target. Pending the outcome of the sale of non-core film and TV assets, we plan to prioritize the sale proceeds toward paying down debt. We remain committed to maintaining our investment-grade rating. At the same time, we're intensely focused on our cost savings goal and improving margins.
They're intensely concerned about their cost savings goals and their margins. So this person doesn't appear to be sounding genuine. It just sounds like they're reading off of a script. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was like another, sort of just a Wikipedia reading all over. So who are they talking to, right? We've seen the Blueprint 2.0 here in black and white and color. A lot of color on these charts here. We're talking about adjustments. So who are they talking to? They're talking to the players. Are they talking to you and me on the morning show who love the game and we talk about it each and every morning? I feel like they're not, but no, of course they're not. So the most, and I'm going to touch on it here because nobody else is. And here's the part: with 7 of you watching, 7's a great number. Let's go with a 7 because 7 is fantastic. I'm gonna show you the part that is the most concerning for me in this entire. Here it is. I'm gonna show you folks the part that is the most concerning part and the most telling part and the most explanatory part of all of these documents for myself to give you sort of a crack into the insight of what it is we're dealing with. So when you say, "Oh, we're just going to take a break from Magic," and that'll smarten them up and that'll change the course that they're on. Now we've been looking at the stock price of Wizards of the Coast, and we saw what it looked like from a $20 to a $40 company. It's not the same animal anymore. At a certain point in time, and I have to do a little bit of historic research to see when this really started happening. At a certain part of time, these folks started to consider, buying up the brand of Hasbro, and it might have already been a major Hasbro uh, business model or corporate goal or sort of a direction. But the part that I find is, and it's is it at the beginning here? So they're adjusted. Let me bring this up for you. Okay, there's two. There's one is called the waterfall. And then this is called the 2023 revenue waterfall, which I find is actually quite funny. And then the other component, I'm just gonna bring it up for you folks here this morning. Tom Mitchell, thanks for joining. Who else we got in the chat here? Time Capsule, Zombie, Prime 406, Peppa Pig. Did you make it into the chat here this morning? I'm just trying to get to. I'm just trying to find. There's 40 slides here. So this part here, and the black and white portion is in here. So it's this part right here. All right. So, and this, you're like, what does this have to do with earnings? It's this one page that's in, and there's only one page. So this stuff is sprinkled in, and I'm just going to see if I can make this bigger for you. Oh, slide number. It's this page here. This is the most telling page of the entire document, and it's their ESG progress, 2022 ESG, long-term value creation for our stakeholders through responsible and sustainable business practices. So, who are they talking to in these meetings? This tells us who they're talking to. They're talking about other companies who are using this philanthropic and social impact ESG strategy, including diversity, equity, and inclusion, to drive the direction of the company. And so long as they're following a pattern that is like-minded, or you could call it, a conspiracy or a brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, that as long as they're all following a pattern that other companies or investors and big banks agree with, they will continue to fund them. And not like, it's not like you and me getting up and going, okay, it's time to buy some Hasbro stock. No, it's when when you listen to these conversations and you listen to the meeting and you're like, that doesn't sound like they're talking to those people at the Magic Con Philadelphia right now who are spending their money. No, they're taking their money and it's going to a greater good, if you will. Okay, let's put it this way. So they've got climate environment goals, CHG goals, committed to setting science-based targets by 2030. So 40% of greenhouse gas reductions and 2050 net zero, validation by Science-Based Target Initiative expected by March 2023. Does this sound oddly at all to do with anything else? Now, when you put down your computer, so if you're going to do one thing, once you're done all this, the stream today, you're going to look up who is Peppa Pig. And I want you to put it in the comment section below, hit it up. Who is Peppa Pig? Well, if you don't know, look up Peppa Pig. And if you have never heard of ESG, look that up. All right. So this is the most telling document in the entire ecosystem of all these pages, and it comes to talks and talks. All right. The rest is all supplemental financial information. Say it with me, folks. Peppa Pig. So there's a lot of conversation about Peppa Pig, Power Rangers, the universes beyond for Magic the Gathering, and these are all brands that form part of a basket of brands. And Magic falls in there, and you're like, "Oh, Brody, this is depressing. This is depressing. This is depressing. Brody, you've given us such bad news. You can't talk about that, Brody. In fact, you and Russell Brand are gonna have to get together and like discuss Magic. Well, why do you care about Magic? Because each one of these brands, and this is why I care about it so much, and I'll tell you why does anyone care? Right? Why does anyone care? Why do you even care, Brody? I care because some of the, not just because the game is a fantastic game, it's the best game, it's the thinkingest game out there. I was introduced to the game when I was very young, and I enjoyed it for what it was, and I felt a connection to the people and the Richard Garfield team that developed the game and the gathering that came with it, and that was something that's special. So now we're dealing with an entire different animal when it comes to investing in old products like 1993, 94, nostalgic historic pieces of the game. So that's what those game pieces mean and represent to me, because as periods in time change, the game's going to evolve to 2030 and 2050 and beyond. The custodians of the game, the people who own it and are stewards of it, have different ideas now than what the original game designers have, and it's the brand that we love and know so much. Now, what can you do about it? There's what can we do about it? Okay. Well, we are just spirits hanging around in this crazy universe trying to figure out what time it is. We're using funny numbers, 20s and 30s, and you know, where are we as a player base, right? We're in a period of time where the game is going, you know, it's gotten big, it's going out to everybody, it's going to be going out to the Lord of the Rings coming out in the next little bit. There's gonna be a Lord of the Rings component in the universes beyond, and the 6 blockbuster movies that are going to be showing up in the very near future coming to you. Are you going to spend money on those movies and go out and see them? If you want to get the fun into your collection, the fun cards, the old school cards, the reserve list cards, the iconic pieces. So these older pieces of Magic the Gathering from years in which were represented by an entire different type of uh, company and a mindset are still out there to love and collect. And that's why I like the old cards so much. And here's the other news. Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of the possession is 9/10 of the law? It's a fact. So here we have created an entire scenario where you've got the brand owner who is in the business of buying brands, and we talked about Yum Brands the other day, and treated Magic as just another one of their brands. But then there's the physical game pieces and the uniqueness to Magic the Gathering, where any of these other brands that they have, whether it's Power Rangers or, and this is why Magic is different, and that they should treat it different, and it's not, is that you can copy those things and people would still get the same amount of enjoyment out of them. You can't reproduce a card from Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, or Revised and recreate the nostalgia that goes with it. So now you have a scenario where the game pieces are out there in the hands of the players, and the intellectual property is owned by, well, this what we were just talking about, a group, and it's a group of companies who have aggregated, if you will. Magic is just one form of the aggregate, right? It's just a piece of all the other pieces that they own, right? It's like, you know, it's just like a sock in the drawer of all the other socks that you have, right? They treat it like that. It's sad, but it's something I love. So possession is 9/10 of the law, and this is where you get folks that are like my little brother Rudy, right? He's like wants an alpha hoarder. Mike, shout out to you, the alpha hoarder, if you're watching. These folks understand that having the game pieces, when you have your own cards and you have your own game pieces, and this even gets into proxying, you control the game for yourself. And there's something about that. So possession is 9/10 of the law. if the all the players, let's say for example somebody wants to collect a full set of alpha, very difficult to do, but once you have it, that's yours. You can make whatever rules you want, and you can basically have your own game and your own gathering with groups of people. And there's not a lot Wizards or Hasbro or any of these companies can do. uh, like, because they don't, it's like a disconnect, right? This is like the disconnect between the folks that think you should own nothing and just reprint everything and be happy with it, and no, nothing has value, or people who understand that the original game pieces of the game are collectible, they're valuable, and as long as they remain in the hands of the players, that there's always going to be some kind of a line of separation between the game and the players, and we want to get more cards. So that's what we care about. So for me, getting older cards and older reserve list cards, revised cards, old school cards that are playable in older formats, because when I look at those cards, the nostalgia that goes with the card and the art and the game design and the mentality and the direction of the game at the time, with the bumpers on the freeway, keeping the game design going in uh direction that is non-targeting to people who are of compulsive uh tendencies to buying lots of product. It's just sort of it's sort of my personal opinion. So there you have it, folks. There's Brody's hot take on the entire uh there's Brody's hot take on this entire Wizards of the Coast Hasbro 2022 earnings report. And so, what does that mean to me? Like, there's some telling signs in here. So, this is what it means. Now, how right were we? Oh my gosh! Now it's gonna. So this is a there. So this you basically get to see your opponent's hand here, right? So you're like, okay, what does your hand look like? Well, they're losing cash. They're halfway through their cash. They've borrowed more money, right? And they're kind of putting out some BS speculative bullish strength signals, bolstering and chest pounding for their other brands and the other licensed products that are going to be coming up, and dropping certain ones like the Disney Princess brand. Oh, that was bad. That we dropped that. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going into Universes Beyond and 6 blockbuster movies that over come out, and this waterfall. So there's a couple of buzzwords that must be going on, and overhang. If you listen to if we listen to this entire, oh my gosh, I gotta find it. I want to listen to Chris Cox talking about
$1
this
million
overhang.
impact of foreign exchange.
And last but not least, we have some fun new twists on old favorites that will delight new generations of fans and introduce amazing new low price points supported by magical play innovation. As we think beyond 2023, our focus remains on growing more of our franchise brands to $1 billion businesses, extending our blueprints through partnerships, content, and new digital experiences, and driving significant bottom line and margin growth through a more focused, agile, and leaner organization. In the near term, we will execute our focus category and inventory reduction plans to grow share, transform our organization and cost structure to drive innovation and improve margins, and continue to invest in new categories, competencies, and partnerships to set up Hasbro for robust long-term growth.
So the inventory he's talking about is like on the black and white piece of paper. There's an entire spot where it talks about like an increase in inventory. So you have to report like how much like stuff do you have? Like how much is the company worth? Like show us the receipts. And their inventory is high. So a takeaway, this seemed like a little bit of a blame the other guy scenario, unfortunately, because the reason for having so much inventory is almost pointed at like one, the economy, two, distribution, and that was like two of the points that we wanted to blame, and that the reason for not having a smooth release of all the products where it seemed like they were back to back was due to a distribution issues. So that's another case of blame the other guy, right? It's not overprinting, it's distribution issues. And then so if you get to the end of the Audible, one of the in fact one of the questions from Mega Alexander, I believe, was or maybe it was somebody who wanted them to explain like how long it was going to take to get through that inventory, and that's why we're hearing the third quarter of this year. Now, how wrong are we, right? Like even and here's the thing, sometimes in life you got to do nothing. You got to stop and just look and be like, I'm not moving until I get some confirmation, right? I'm not doing a thing, I'm not making a decision until I get like some confirmation. Magic Nerf guns and Power Rangers toys didn't sell in the recession. No, because they're taking away the real ones and giving you plastic ones. That's part of this, right? Uh okay, so Benson says, Benson's here. Man, Hasbro loses and bad earnings isn't solely MTG. It's also hard for actual toys to sell like they used to. Today, kids have tablets and virtual entertainment for everything. 263 million for Magic the Gathering in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Morning, Benson. Thanks for joining. Coach says the funny thing is Hasbro stock went up after the earnings call. Magic the Gathering revenue fell 40% in the fourth quarter. Yes. So it did. It went from $58 to 60 cents, and now it's going to be hovering around that $59. But like, let's consider like a year as like a game of Magic that goes long, right? Okay, so like you're going to play best 2 out of 3. We know how last year went, right? People were pretty tapped, and like now they're saying, okay, now they're tapped out. They're like, we're going all in, we're tapping all our lands out. We've got good strategy, we just need the banks to keep playing ball with selling our stock to other friendly companies who invest in baskets of stocks the way we basket our brand. So they're going to keep propping it up. They're going to just consider it a deal. It's a bargain. You would be foolish not to invest. With all of this waterfall, Magic Waterfall, we've ironed out the distribution chain. Some reserve list card have weird odd mechanics. Charizard and Chaos Orb, for example. Yeah. I changed my mind after listening to Brody on the reserve list is like guardrails. Some reserve list cards have weird and odd mechanics. I used to be iffy on the reserve list printings, and I changed my mind after listening to Brody. Thank you, Benson. Thank you. You know, as a person who works in product quality from time to time, I really want to make sure that the car that I buy has at least a seatbelt, right? It has to have a seatbelt. It should have a window. It's got to have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. You know, I don't care about the air conditioning, the sunroof, and all the bells and whistles so much as like the base mechanics of the car is sound, and that's where like certain products need to be discontinued and put onto a list of we shouldn't do that again. Call it what you want. Call it what do they call it in automotive? A recall list, a re this list, the re list, right? It's like it is the reserve list is, and I said it, is like the guardrails on the freeway. It keeps you out of the ditches. It's the game players, the game early, like it's always the one type of person who will walk out into a field and be like, you see this fence? There's a fence here. Why is there a fence here? We should take it down. Let's take this fence down. And then like some people will come along and be like, no, it's probably there for a reason. Like, I know you can't see the buffalo now, but like they must come through here, or maybe like it's for wilderness. Like let's figure out why it was built first before we tear it all down, right? Like that's sort of what the reserve list says to me. All right. And a game we love so much. So who the heck is Peppa Pig, right? And then Peppa Pig comes up a few times in this. It's interesting. Let's go on.
23. I'll now turn the call over to Deb Thomas, Hasbro's Chief Financial Officer. Deb?
Thanks, Chris, and good morning, everyone. Over the course of 2022, we made meaningful progress to strengthen Hasbro by completing our strategy review.
Can't let you listen to this because this is literally reading it right off of a page. It's more of this spoon feeding bankers and like big investors more stuff of what they want to hear
as we move through 2022. We anticipate improvement in cost of sales to revenue this year, driven by our ongoing transformation efforts. Program amortization dollars declined on lower entertainment deliveries in the year.
Hey, I am an amateur, but she sounds like she's reading it off of a piece of paper.
Royalty expense declined 70 basis points on several successful scripted series, including The Rookie, Yellow Jackets, and Cruel Summer, with several new shows like The Rookie Feds and The Recruit.
We would anticipate that that's going to continue in Q1 and Q2 and potentially roll into at least part of Q3 as well, before starting to normalize in Q4 back to a more traditional growth level. So that's one set of headwinds that we factored in. The other one that we're looking at is 2021 had historically an unusual sales pattern with it. Retailers were buying much earlier in the year. We were playing catch up from 2020, particularly in Q1 in terms of fulfilling orders. And we don't see that happening this time. You know, actually, we see retail inventory not unhealthy, but still having a little bit of an overhang given the slowing consumer demand.
So that's the overhang. This overhang. Where is the overhang? Well, I'll tell you. Where is your overhang, mister? There's this talk about this overhang. Okay, so this backlog of products that didn't move. And if you go back to like Gaming Bob was right on the target there yesterday. He said there's 3 pieces of information that you folks can use to kind of get an idea of what's happening. The fireside chat, this earnings report, and last year's earnings report. And this conference call sort of put it all together. But they're talking about the overhang and the product and his overhang, right? Let's go on.
That we saw in Q4. So we see kind of demand starting to normalize. I think something like 57% of our sales were for second half last year. And this year we probably see that in the 60 to 65% range, which is more historically normal for 2019 and before. So that has something at play. And then, you know, we just look at our overall release calendar across Wizards of the Coast, across our entertainment segment, and across consumer products. And, you know, we have a pretty exciting Q3 in terms of new products across all of them, and a lot of entertainment that's going to be coming out in Q2 and having a nice kind of halo effect into Q3 and Q4. So that's kind of what informed our overall quarterly mix and half mix. And some of the assumptions we made.
A halo effect. Aren't you a saint there, Chris, talking about his overhang, or maybe it's his hangover? I'm not too sure what these people are thinking, but they are very bullish on all their metrics that they present here, and they kind of power through this entire conference.
Deb, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I would just agree, Chris. I think we see
I would just agree with Chris.
2022 was a bit of an anomaly in that the order pattern early in the year, and we do expect to get back to those historical shipment patterns. We think retailers will, closer to the holiday season. That's typical, and
we're going to get back to some historic shipment patterns.
And we also, see that in our business, and with all the entertainment, we're really excited.
Great. Arpina, you had a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. This is super helpful.
I love this, Rapina. She asks a couple of tough questions. She's great.
Helpful and perhaps partially answers my second question, but I'm still going to ask this because I've been getting a lot of feedback from investors as well on this sort of math. So I'm calculating around 5 percentage points of revenue headwind from just giving up the Disney Princess Frozen license for the consumer product business. Plus you have about 3 to 4 points of inventory overhang. and you're guiding that segment, consumer product business, to be down.
It says, Mr. Chris Cox, I've noticed your overhang in your inventory, right?
Mid-single digit. Could you just walk us through what is growing to offset that 4 points of overhang?
Could you just walk us through what's growing to offset that overhang of inventory that you like?
I think you had a good rundown on some of the Transformer stuff, obviously D&D, and also while we are at it, could you give us a sense where the D&D merchandise is going to be reported? Is it going to be in consumer? Is there anything in consumer products, or all of that is going to be within the Wizard segment? Thank you.
Wow. So it's just the phrasing of some of these questions is just, talking about the excessive overhang on inventory and what's being done to grow on the other side. Mr. Chris Cox, you delve into that.
Yeah, so I think as we've reported in the past, the average that we experienced over the last several years on Disney princesses was about $250 million of revenue, with the peak in around 2019 with the last Frozen movie. Last year,
this is his big brain play, right? Like, we're going to discontinue the licensing or printing princess toys. We don't care about that brand anymore because like Frozen is passe. Big brain moment coming here.
We were well off that peak as we were starting to exit that business and it transitioned to another company. So that would be how I would think about and modeling that. And then, yes, we see about $135 million of inventory overhang at retail.
Again, with the overhanging.
And then, we have, a little bit less than that in terms of inventory that we're holding on to as well. We think that will take the full year to kind of move through, but I think we'll move through a good hunk of that and our fair share in the first 2 quarters of the year. And then when we look at kind of what the growth vectors are, we have a strategy where we want to grow in 5 focus categories, and we have a plan for each of those categories. In outdoor.
And this plan, all you Magic the Gathering players, the part where you fit in is as the consumer, right? That we've seen it. This is the plan. So it seems pretty disingenuous. But as you can almost hear that things are a little bit desperate in my opinion. I don't know if Brody's here. All right, folks. We've dwelled enough on that. I think it's time we get onto something a little bit more just a little bit more wholesome here. We beat the living crap out of it for now. Let's move on to something a little bit more tasteful, if you will. We're still bullish on Magic cards. So what does this mean to you, hey Brody? What does this mean to you? It means we're still buying cards. We're still buying the reserve list. We're picking up the older game pieces. We got to rescue them. We're on a rescue mission to get that fun into our collection. That's a fact. I heard Tom Mitchell in the house here this morning. I did. reserve list. I'm buying the reserve list one Kukas at a time. Dual Brains in the house. You're heading on your way to Philly. It's hard to make value on cards from Standard and Pioneer. Magic does not have value unless you got it in 10 or more years ago. I believe they reprinted some reserve lists for tournament promos, masterpieces, and Phyrexia. Coalition dual decks. Modern weekly movers are bumping. Let's check out the modern weekly movers. I know Michael Superbacker. Hey. I'm glad you're here this morning, Michael. Safe adventures. Ed's on the way to Philly. We're hanging out with the amazing fans of Magic the Gathering who love the game as much as we do. Let's take a look at some vintage Magic, because this is what's going to happen, okay? There's a lot of uncertainty going on with the custodians, but the game moves on. People move to tournaments. I know Dual Brains got his eye. What are you looking for? What have you got your eye set on? One of the thinkingest men in the game of Magic the Gathering, the Dual Brain. Tell me, what have you got your sights set on to pick up from Magic the Gathering Philadelphia? I'm almost sure it's not going to be something shiny and new. I think it's going to be a little piece of Magic the Gathering history, some artifact, if you will. Maybe a Chaos Orb, one of these dark packs, a Falling Star. Bumping. Here on the show, we're going to be back to our regular scheduled program. Let's take a look at this Hasbro stock here this morning. We're going to be back to our regular scheduled program on Monday. We're going to see where things go. Right now, Hasbro stock price, it was up over $60 yesterday for a hot minute, right? This is what's going on currently right now. $58.46. Here we go. Let's get out the really epic pen. I need it to show you folks here. We got this support level right here. Hardcore support level right here of $40 to $50, right? Right at around the $60 mark. Let's move it down. Let's draw it in. So what's going to happen, folks? If we can keep people asleep and keep enticing new players into the game, people have no idea what's going on over here. We got Lord of the Rings players, we got Universes Beyond, all these people. When the Power Rangers, I would expect a Power Rangers set come out some point soon. As you folks, the amazing fans of Magic the Gathering, who are aware of what's going on in the game and are custodials of the game we love so much, hopefully you folks can be good stewards of the game of Magic the Gathering and spread peace, love, and happiness to many Magic the Gathering players who love the game. What are we gonna do here? This is a top hat. This is a pyramid. This is huge. Look at this. This is some overhead. Here. Nice little, right over here in yellow. This is a nice little company, you know. Brody just likes to draw lines on charts and make herself a couple more blue lines. I'm going to be getting out of here, folks. Look at that time. It's well past the hour. My time is up. Great show here this morning. I really am glad I got a chance to talk to you folks about the Hasbro earnings, give you my 2 cents on it, what it means, what I see, how this affects the game, and where do we go from here? Well, you go on business as usual, just a little bit more aware, a little bit more in tune with the game, and you just love it just a little bit more, right? Remember, shuffle that fun into your collection where it has value. We want your Magic the Gathering collection to grow in fun because that's where the value is. Let's get some of those cards. Brody just wants to draw. I started the show, I just want to draw lines on stock charts. And don't be fooled. This isn't the daily high, low, up and down. This is a serious channel. Don't be fooled by any of those substitutes out there. This is a serious show. This is the morning show. This is a coffee show. Don't mess with us. This is our game. We love it. Watch out. Dual brain. We're going to draw a little more for you folks here. This is Brody's in-depth technical analysis. We can't draw it that way. There we go. This is, woo, we're running up that hill. We finished. Great. Thanks for joining me, folks. It's been a slice. We'll be back on Monday with another morning Magic the Gathering stocks and talks. We're getting excited. It's going to be a great 2023. Won't you join it with me? Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you all again real soon.